Welcome to The Know, I'm Ashley.
I'm John.
Heads up, we've got another politician blaming video games for all the evils in the world.
Oh, good.
It's the new rock and roll.
Yes.
This time it's the governor of Kentucky blaming the recent horrific school shooting in Florida on an all too familiar target, violent video games.
So wait, a politician is using an easy scapegoat instead of looking at causes that would take effort to solve? Color me shocked.
Yes.
Sarcasm.
In a radio interview after the shooting in Parkland, Florida, which killed 17 people, Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin blamed all sorts of media, including movies and TV, but he singled out video games for corrupting the minds of young people, ignoring the fact that the vast majority of gamers don't shoot up schools, and that studies don't support his claims at all.
But hey, why bother with facts when we have fear-mongering?
It's easier.
I like that. This excuse has been trotted out by politicians again and again over the decades, pretty much ever since video games have been invented.
And it's been debunked in study after study after study after study. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, first, let's review how the governor chose to pander to his base of voters who probably haven't played a video game since Pong.
In the interview, Bevin said there are video games that, yes, are listed for mature audiences, but kids play them and everybody knows it, and there's nothing to prevent the child from playing them. They celebrate the slaughtering of people. There are games that literally replicate and give people the ability to score points for doing the very same thing that these students are doing inside of schools, where you get extra points for finishing someone off who's lying there begging for their life.
Like Mario.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
I don't know what video game that is. Also, there is something in place to prevent children from playing those games. It's called their parents, because young children aren't allowed to buy mature games in stores. Their parents have to do it for them. And so if their parents are choosing to do that, that's a choice of the parents.
Side note, which video game is he talking about at the end there? Is
Mario.
Is he talking to me about like Glory Kills in Doom? Because you're fighting demons. Or maybe he's talking about like Mortal Kombat.
You know what? No one cares.
Yeah.
Because
that's the answer.
It's like he made that up. Bevin went on to say, these are video games, all quotes, and they're forced down our throats under the guise of protected speech. It's garbage. It's the same as pornography.
I wish.
They have desensitized people to the value of human life, to the dignity of women, to the dignity of human decency. We are reaping what we've sown here. Also, just want to point out that apparently women are separate from human dignity.
Yeah. Gotta point that out.
Just,
Good phrasing, Holmes. He ended up saying, I'm asking the producers of these products, these video games and these movies, ask yourselves what redemptive value, other than shock value, other than the hope you'll make a couple of bucks off it.
There's a lot of value to be had. There's a lot of interactive storytelling, building fine motor control, exploration of morals.
I do this cool thing with video games where I make friends when I play video games.
Weird. This isn't the first time Bevin's gone after video games in the aftermath of a school shooting either.
Yeah, last month after a fatal school shooting.
Another fatal school shooting. We have to clarify that.
Because we keep doing that. It was in his own state. Bevin told reporters, we can't celebrate death in video games, celebrate death in TV shows, celebrate death in movies, celebrate death in musical lyrics, and remove any sense of morality and sense of higher authority, and then expect that things like this are not going to happen.
Okay, now if it ended there with, one clearly out of touch politician getting on his high horse about games instead of addressing issues that directly impact these events, like mental health and the fact that the shooter was able to very legally buy the gun used in the attack, that would be one thing. But he's not the only one.
Oh, good. Florida State Representative Jared Moskowitz also made a video game connection the day after the recent shooting. While he didn't blame video games directly, he said the gunman was prepared to pick off students like it's a video game.
Look, dudes, these claims have been debunked like a million times now. And video games, sure, yeah, easy scapegoat for politicians who don't want to confront the much tougher issues surrounding mass shootings.
Yep. It's easier to blame the kids and what they're playing.
And make up games that are apparently reward you extra points for killing people who are begging for their lives. Is he talking about hatred?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he's actually just developing his own game at this point.
Maybe.
After all, Guys, mass murder didn't exist before video games came
No,
along,
definitely
did
not.
it? Oh, wait, yes it did. It did a lot.
But hey, just for fun, let's run down some of the recent studies showing why this argument doesn't hold water.
Okay, last year some German researchers conducted a study on 15 males who played violent video games like Counter-Strike, Call of Duty, and Battlefield on a regular basis.
In that study, the participants were shown drawings that were designed to elicit empathetic reactions, and researchers measured their neural responses. So what did they find?
Diddly squat, no evidence of long-term desensitization due to violent games, but wait, there's a more.
According to a new study by researchers at the University of York in the UK, there is no evidence of a link between violent video games and behavior.
The authors wrote, in a series of experiments with more than 3,000 participants, the team demonstrated that video game concepts do not prime players to behave in certain ways, and that increasing the realism of violent video games does not necessarily increase aggression in game players.
But there's even more!
Cool.
A few years ago, Whitney DeCamp, an associate professor of sociology at Western Michigan University, also tried to study a link between the two using a survey of more than 6,000 eighth graders. What did she find?
That video games, no matter how twisted and gory they might be, didn't predict if someone would have violent behavior.
But there's even more.
Good.
Christopher Ferguson, a professor of psychology at Stetson University, wrote recently that he studied violent video games for almost 15 years and said, I can state that there is no evidence to support these claims that violent media and real-world violence are connected.
A few years ago, Ferguson looked at more than 100 studies on the subject, and he found that violent video games had little impact on kids' aggression, mood, helping behavior, or grades.
He went on to say, as far back as 2011, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that research did not find a clear connection between violent video games and aggressive behavior. Criminologists who study mass shootings specifically refer to those sorts of connections as a myth.
So yeah, while some researchers have found that some people with antisocial tendencies might be drawn to violent video games, that's a lot different than saying that violent video games cause real-life violent behavior.
I mean, look, let's go back to the age-old example. If video games encourage people to do things in real life, Mario would have inspired generations of kids to try and just bust bricks with their heads.
Yeah.
And Pac-Man would encourage kids to eat really weird stuff.
That's like saying oh, a lot of the shooters wore black. Black makes people kill people. That's not how logic works.
Correlation is not causation.
Yeah, but hey, that's very smart. Look at you.
That's just something that everyone else says. I picked it up somewhere.
You had a moment to just own up to that.
No, I made it up.
There you go. But hey, as long as there are politicians out there who want something easy to blame, this argument will always exist, so we'll just have to keep knocking it down.
What do you guys think of this latest attempt by a politician to link video games with violent behavior and avoid, the tougher issues? Let us know in the comments.
And for all of your video game news, violent or not, be sure to like this video, and if you're new around here, subscribe to the Know.
We do the news while punching each other.
Yeah, video games make me do this.
Hey! Real-world violence are connected.
A few years ago, Ferguson looked at more than 101 studies on the subject, and he found that violent video games had little impact on kids' aggression, mood.
It should be more than 100, I'm sorry.
Okay.
More than 101.
It's so weird, yeah.
It is.
It was 102.
It might have been more than 101.